All right, well, here I am back again. I attempted to broadcast using that third-party app once again onto YouTube. It did not work. I actually took a couple of minutes and found another app, third-party app, uploaded it onto my phone, attempted it. It did not work. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and broadcast the little Bible study right here, and then I will I'll post it onto YouTube as a follow-up lesson. I'm working on something else that I learned about and talked to Randy a little bit about it. I've got some other guys that I'm talking to about it. I understand that I can take a pre-recorded video and I can present it on Facebook as if it were live. So it's an old message or a pre-recorded message. I'd be able to put it where so that you're watching it almost as if it's live, and you'd be able to comment as it goes along. You'd be able to share together. And I think that's what I'm going to do for the Sunday school lesson. I have a message. It's actually from last year that explains really well the concept of faith promise. I think I'm going to give it to you as my Sunday school lesson, present it to you tomorrow or Sunday as my Sunday school lesson. Only problem with it is it's like almost 50 minutes long is about the only thing that's wrong with it. But I'm going to attempt to put it on this page, this group, as a live. It's pre-recorded, but send it to you as if it was live for the Sunday school lesson. So you'd be able to comment along and kind of fellowship out with each other as the lessons are going on. One of the cool things about this is you're almost able to fellowship with me and with one another through the comments with these things. So, but I just this morning in my personal devotions, and this is not my devotion for this morning, but as I was doing my devotions this morning, I was reading in 2 Corinthians. I just finished 1 Corinthians. I'm in 2 Corinthians chapter 7 today. And but I'm thinking about that as I was reading it, and as I was reading 2 Corinthians, and I got thinking, Paul is a great example of a social communicator, a correspondence communicator. Paul was in a situation where he ministered to people that he had led to the Lord and in churches that he had planted. I know he's not a pastor in that sense, but as an apostle, he kind of is the example for the pastor. He's the example for the missionary. He's the example for the evangelist. He kind of is in all of those wrapped into one person. But it occurred to me that Paul is our example of how to minister to a congregation during times of social distancing. Obviously, he was distanced. Fully half of our New Testament, 13 out of the 27 New Testament books, were penned by the Apostle Paul, written by the Holy Spirit of God, but Paul was the pen man. And as he ministered to those people, even though that he wasn't able to see face to face. So how did he do it? Well, number one, Paul was a prolific writer. Again, 13 of the 27 New Testament books he's the writer of. And in fact, there's indications that he wrote other things, that 13 of his writings became inspired, or God preserved and inspired in the Word of God. But he's a prolific writer. And I don't consider myself a good writer, but I've always enjoyed writing. Ever since I was in high school and junior high, I've enjoyed writing. One of the reasons, though, as a Christian and then as a pastor, one of the reasons why I am so involved in writing is because I am convinced that God uses it. God speaks to you through a book. He led men to write. And I understand that, he speaks to us through preaching and all that. But even we who preach, we get our messages from the book. It's the written word. And so I think writing is such an important thing. David, almost, you can look at the Psalms, almost as David's journal. And as he recorded his feelings around the events that were going on in his life. He recorded it as songs, but that's what it is. It's his life on paper and pen. Right now, so we're kind of shut down. The stay-at-home order. This would be a great time for you, as I've already indicated a few times, for you to learn the habit or the practice of journaling. Just write down something about what's going on every single day. Well, not much going on. I'm stuck at home. Well, what's the weather like outside? What did you read in your Bible today? What were your specific prayer requests today? What were some fun or discouraging or whatever, what kind of things like that? And just write some of those things. It doesn't have to be long, and you don't have to do it every single solitary day. I try to, but you don't have to do it every single solitary day. Just write. And also, this would be a great time to teach your kids the practice of journaling and teach them how to write down what's going on. This would be a fun time to do that. My wife, when she was a child, went on a trip. Her parents drove to Alaska through the Alcan Highway, and they did it in a time when the Alcan Highway, was a gravel road. And she wrote a journal about the trip. This is something else. We're living through a time. This isn't what people endured during the Depression, and it's not what people endured during World War II. But certainly this is going to be a significant event. We're living in a time. The entire world is locked in their homes. Imagine the entire world. I asked some questions. They found out in Russia, the reasoners up in Russia, it's like a $25,000 fine to be caught outside of their house. This is an unprecedented time. Teach your children, write about what's going on, what they're thinking, whether they're sad about it or whether they're happy about it or what they've done. Teach your kids to do that. Teach them to write down something about the Bible, and just teach them to write. Use writing. Spend some time writing. And secondly, Paul, so he wrote and he communicated to people. By the way, that'll be part of it, communicating with others in text and so forth. Paul also used a team. How does he do this social networking thing in his day? He used a team. So while he could not connect with every person personally, he depended upon others to make whatever connections they could make with others and then report back to him. And I think we can look at ourselves as a team to connect, to make connections one with another, and even maybe report some of your connections back to me in some way, text me a message or whatever, those sorts of things. And so let's think of ourselves as a team to make connections. Get in touch with others in the church in some way. Use text messaging or calls or phone calls or FaceTiming or Skype or whatever it is that you use to do those things, but try to make a connection. I'd recommend do something like this. Make a list of every person in the church. All of us have our kind of, these are the go-to people. Try to reach, don't forget your go-to people, but try to find some people that are outside of your go-to people and make a goal that before this order is lifted, that you've reached out to everyone in the church that you know by name. If you need a list, if you need that kind of help, I can help you get the names of the people in the church and reach out to people and try to do that and reach out to them in some way. And then third, so Paul was a prolific writer. Paul used a team to help with his connections with so much distance between him. And third thing is Paul prayed for believers and he told them so. That was one of the things he did. We can talk about all kinds of things right now and talk about whether we agree or disagree, with what's going on. All that, there's all of those kind of things. This is a premium time to learn to pray, a prime time to learn to pray and pray for one another. So I've been mentioning this each day. This little list, it's an outline from a message, from a series of messages I did that I turned into a book called They Learned to Pray. And so I've been going through that. In Romans, the theme of prayer is salvation. In 1st and 2nd Corinthians, the theme of prayer is separation. And in Ephesians today, the theme of prayer in Ephesians is that the believers would have I'm going to call it a spirit of wisdom. And he was praying that God's people would have light shined into the recesses of their minds so that they would understand three things. They would understand the hope of his calling, not their calling, God's calling upon their life. What is, and understand what it means to be a child of God, that God has called you and made you His own. Understanding understanding the riches of the glory of His inheritance, and getting a hold of understanding. This is a good time to pray for one another, to understand what it is, get to have to possess the inheritance of Jesus Christ in our life. And then he prayed that they would understand the exceeding greatness of His power. The greatness of God's power. Even in a time like this, what a good time to learn that while we are shut in, God is not. I may not be able to go to someone's house and visit him right now. My God can. And I can ask my God to do it. And so this is a great time to pray. Anyway, so there's just a short Bible study, a little lesson here, and trust it'll be a blessing to you today.